Welcome to the Round Rock Ward podcast. Today we're excited to hear from Helaman Aragon, a well-known leader in our ward and our stake, but also a pilot. And we're excited to talk to you. Thank you for joining us, Helaman.
Well, thank you, Amanda. You're super nice in your introduction. Very generous. Thank you. I'm excited to be able to talk to you and allow others to get to know me better, and look forward to get to know others as well.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being willing to share with us. I'd love to ask about where you were born, where you grew up. Obviously not Plano.
Yeah, I was born in a small town on the Gulf Coast, Tampico, like the Jews. And when I was 6 going on 7, my dad was transferred to Mexico City as part of his job with the Church Educational System, CES. So I pretty much grew up in Mexico City. And like I said, with my dad working for CES, we were exposed to the church, to the church system, to general authorities, all the church lingo, I guess, at an early age. My dad was in leadership during those years, both professionally and also in his church service. And so we grew up in the church.
That's a really unique experience anyway, but to have that experience in Mexico is even more profound.
And of course, my mom was super active. She has always remained active, unlike my dad. And I would say she is the number one reason for my testimony, if you will. And I only say that because a second ago I said, we grew up in the church. I wanted to make sure my mom gets the credit for it. Really was her steadiness and being faithful in the gospel that I think had a tremendous impact on me.
That's really neat. It's a great tribute to your mom.
Yeah.
And I guess your dad, because he brought you there and gave you those experiences too. Yeah. So how many kids were in your family growing up?
Just 3. I have an older brother, Jacob. He's about 4 years older. And my sister, Olga, we call her Olguita, even though she's now 40. She's a musician, a professional musician, plays the viola, and has played in China and Europe and many different countries throughout the world. And then my brother, he's good with computers and, kind of programming, coding, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, that's neat. And you chose to become a pilot.
Yeah. My brother is the one who got me to be interested in aviation. He's 4 years older, and so I think when Top Gun came out in 1986, I was only 7. And I think from that time forth, we became really excited about airplanes, especially military aviation. And that stuck. And from that time onward, I would just devour anything I could get on my hands on, like books, magazines, videos, documentaries. And my goal really was to be a fighter pilot. But the Mexican Air Force is very small. And if you want to be a pilot, you had to join in before you turn 21 years old. So at some point, I pretty much had to make a decision whether I was going to go on a mission or whether I would join the Air Force. And in retrospective, I chose wisely and the better part. And an interesting thing is my brother, when he came back from his mission, he got really dizzy and sick on the airplane flight back to Mexico City. And from that experience, he decided maybe flying was not for him. So he did not go on to be a pilot, but I did, strangely. But I'm really glad. And one thing that my dad did, and I give him credit for this, he probably could see the potential of this career for me, and he made sure that he fed that interest. He got us a magazine subscription when we were maybe 11, and the magazine would come in once a week, and it had all about military aviation from every country, and there was about 50 volumes of it, or I don't know, editions, I guess, weekly editions. And that was something that I really look forward every week to read and study and reread. And so I knew all of the military aviation nomenclature and details and military history. I'm pretty big on that too, since I was a little kid.
Wow.
World War II especially, Desert Storm, and yeah, military aviation. I'm big on that.
That's amazing. So he really saw your interest and he helped feed that.
Yeah, sure did.
That's so important as a dad, don't you think?
Yeah, exactly. I think it has made me, as I'm an adult now and a father, I ask myself the question, what am I doing like my dad did, so I can help my kids latch on to things that will pay off in the future, career-wise, or, just good common wisdom. Yeah.
That's really neat. So before we go forward from that point, hey girls.
I want to play in a different room.
Okay, go check the nursery right there.
It already has the lights on. Here, Mom.
Thank you.
I need a new paper.
We'll see.
Okay.
Before we go forward, you got a unique experience to attend Benemérito, which
Yeah.
is the church high school in Mexico City.
Yes.
Is that right? I don't know much more than that. Do you want to tell a little bit
Yeah.
about that experience?
I think the school was created probably in the mid 1960s. It was part of the church educational system, and the objective, from what I understand, was to create educational opportunities, which are super important. But at the same time, it was to be an avenue to raise generations of faithful members of the church and future return missionaries that could go on to take leadership positions within the church. It has a campus. It's like a small BYU, and I believe in the early days they had elementary through high school. Then as the years went on, some of that was discontinued, and only the high school remained. In Mexico, high school is only 3 years, and the students that came from out of town, all over Mexico, out of town, they went to school in the afternoons, and they lived there in housing, student housing. And then the students like me who lived in Mexico City, we went to school in the morning, like 8 to 2 p.m. type, Monday through Friday. And one of the good things about that school, they taught us the 4 basic English skills of, listening, writing, reading, and speaking. And we had English labs, and they'll connect you to a computer, and you can, practice your pronunciation and listening skills and reading. And they would have elderly senior missionaries that would come and practice, speaking with us. And so it's a great school. Like BYU, for church members, the cost was very affordable, especially for people from Mexico. There was a devotional, I think, once a week, like in BYU. Classes would start with prayer, and we had guest speakers come maybe once a month, and all kinds of cultural activities. They had a dance group, they had teams. It was patterned after any competent high school or even college here in the United States. And so in retrospective, it was a tremendous blessing to get an education there probably far better than I could have received in any other public school in Mexico.
Wow, that's really
Yeah.
unique.
Oh, and of course, we had seminary there, an hour a day, and that was probably the best part of it.
Was it during the day, kind of like
During the
one of your
day.
classes? Wow.
Yes, so I got 3 years of that. Only my first year did I go to early morning seminary, which was, I think, at 5 a.m. in Mexico City. It was
Whoa.
dark and cold because of the elevation.
So you'd be traveling in the dark way before that to
And
get there at
luckily, it
5.
was walking distance for me, so thankfully,
Okay.
I can tell you a funny story. So I'm only 5'6", right? And so when I was 13 going to 14, I probably was only 4'9", very small. And my mom was really worried that I would have to walk in the dark in our neighborhood in Mexico City at 5 a.m. So luckily, one of the other kids, he was taller and huskier than me, if you will. And so she said to my friend, Israel, he said, you need to come and pick up Helaman. I don't want him to go by himself. But Israel, maybe he didn't go every time. I love going to seminary, so in the days that he never came, I would fakely knock the door to pretend that he was here to pick me up, and then I would just leave. And my mom never found out. Otherwise, she probably would have freaked out, as we say. But I love seminary, and nothing was going to stop me from going. I absolutely loved every minute of it. And I credit that too with my testimony today and my devotion to the Lord. I would say I learned some extremely valuable lessons, spiritually speaking, there. So
That's really neat. So it was worth the sacrifice of that 1 year of early morning seminary.
definitely, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so we'll fast forward. You decided to serve a mission instead of joining the Air Force. So where did you serve? And was that the first time that you left the country?
That was, yeah. So, like most people in Mexico,
Mom, how did this get here?
Oh, there it is.
Is there? Because I saw that in my bed last night.
Maybe it's a different one.
How?
maybe it's a
I don't
twin.
know.
Maybe they just got it from another store.
Mystery solved.
Yeah. So, like most people in Mexico, I was expecting to serve within my home country. And
So that was typical to just get assigned to your own country.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
say 99% of the missionaries, at least when I was 19 years old, were called to serve, in Mexico. If you're from Mexico, you served in Mexico. And so my entire family and my stake and my leaders and my friends' family, we were all surprised when I opened my mission call and it said Utah Provo mission. Pretty
Wow.
rare,
Yeah.
really rare.
How did you feel about that?
So I was extremely excited, and there is a reason for that. When I was in seminary, in high school, I think on my second year, our teacher showed us a video called to serve. And it's, kind of an old video made probably in the early 90s. But in it, it details, the first 10 minutes talks about the MTC. And I thought that looked amazing. And so when I understood that I was going to go to that same place, I felt very, very blessed and special. And I'm sure that the spirit in the Mexico City MTC is just as strong in the Provo MTC, but to me it felt like an added blessing. I can't find words to describe it. And especially when I got to the MTC, it felt like a fairy tale that I was there, because that's kind of what I had pictured in my mind was like the ultimate spiritual experience, if you will. To this day, if I watch that video, it just brings tears to my eyes, because what it meant to me is just beyond something that I can explain. It was just very, very special. And sometimes I say this, if I could just go back to the MTC for one day only, I loved every minute of the MTC. Some people wanted to get out of there as soon as they could. I was there 5 weeks, but I would love to just go back for just one day if I could. Other than the temple, I think is one of the, spiritually speaking, one of the most powerful experiences that I have had. Anyway, I think I forgot where we were going with this. You asked about my mission, right? Okay, going to Provo and my mission and being surprised. So I had never left the country prior to that. I knew that there was a country called the U.S. and, of course, a lot of the music and the movies come from it, and, a lot of church visitors, general authorities, but it was not within my possibilities to leave the country or to visit the U.S., certainly not in my plans or on the horizon in any way or shape. But being called to Utah on a mission to the U.S., in this case, it completely reshaped my horizon, my vision of the world and of the future that I could probably attain that was within my grasp. I was called to serve in Spanish speaking on my mission, and pretty soon I realized there was a lot of us, Mexicans, if you will, here in the States already, and many of them had jobs and families and a home and were being successful, and they were a good, contributing members of society. And many of them had been able to go to school and had good lives. And so I thought, well, maybe I can do that too. And if you remember, I always wanted to be a pilot, and everybody knows that the U.S. is the world leader in aviation. So it awakened in me the possibility of, well, maybe, just maybe, I can go to school in the U.S. one day in the future. I don't know how, but I know it's there. Now I've seen it, and it's part of my vision of the world. So maybe, just maybe, I can achieve that one day. And it happened. It was a blessing. At the end of my 2-year mission, I went back to Mexico, just like everyone else. You had to go back to your home country. I worked for about 8 months, saved some money, and a very kind and wealthy member of the church offered to be a sponsor to me so that I can go to school in the U.S. I can go to college.
Wow.
He was the owner of the Bank of American Fork. His name is Orville Gunther. He has passed since, but he was a well-known leader in the church. He was one of President Hinckley's best friends. He showed me one of his many correspondence letters. Just a giant of a man spiritually and in all areas of life, community leader, leader in the church, wonderful person who also, in the process of helping me, he taught me a couple of very valuable lessons about sacrifice and consecration and about helping others. It's too long to explain, but in my visits with him, he made sure that his investment in me was not going to go to waste. And the lessons that he taught me and what he told me and his expectation to me, it's kind of like that in a book from Charles Dickens, Great Expectations. It's something similar, like he gave me an endowment of sorts, and he had great expectations, and so I try to live my life too in such way that I honor his the way he blessed me. And he had helped many, many students. And so that's kind of how I learned about him. And anyway, I feel that I have been able to fulfill his expectations, and I'll continue to do so.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
Wow. So I imagine once you became a pilot or started going to aviation school, is that what it's called? Aviation school?
Flight school.
Flight school. Okay.
Yeah.
Was that kind of like a surreal experience to finally be in an airplane at the controls?
Yeah, I think the word that you employed, that's a good descriptor. I remember when I was enrolling in school, I was talking to the, I guess, to the staff or the secretary, and through the window, I could see the flight line. And so there is, 20 airplanes line up, side by side on each side. And there's another airplane coming in. And even though there was no music playing in my ears, I could hear, if you're familiar with the music from Jurassic Park, when Dr. Grant sees the dinosaurs and he just cannot believe his eyes. And the orchestra plays this beautiful music of awe, right? And I was in that office and saw the airplanes thinking, I can't believe that my dream is about to come true and that I'm here and that I have been blessed tremendously to be here. I was just beyond myself. Experiences like those and many others like it have been foundational to me in knowing that God is deeply interested in me and the details of my life, and that He is willing to grant blessings that are for my personal development and joy. I think He's interested in us receiving joy in this life, just like the scripture says.
That's so neat. I'm seeing those moments of joy come through.
Yeah.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
So, any other notes you want to say about flight school or about first experiences as a pilot?
Okay, so yeah, let me share just this. Sometimes flying can be a little bit of a spiritual experience, especially when you're not distracted by talking to someone else, whether you're in a small trainer airplane all by yourself, or sometimes in my job these days, sometimes we fly in the middle of the night and both pilots maybe are tired and they're not talking to each other, so I can actually enjoy my own thoughts in my head or elevate my thoughts into prayer, so to speak, while I'm looking out the window to the most beautiful clear night that you have ever seen, because we fly high above the clouds and any haze, and so you can see the Milky Way and you see so many stars, and it's just almost a religious experience to be able to pray and to think and to ponder while looking out the window. When we're long flights cruising, there's very little to do. The autopilot is on. It's middle of the night. There's hardly anybody out there, hardly anybody on the radio. So it's very enjoyable at times. Or you see the most beautiful colors as the sun comes up or as the sun goes down. It can be deeply spiritual at times. Seeing the mountains, the oceans, the world that God created. Yeah.
I imagine that gives you a different perspective of the world. Just imagining a road trip, for example. You're used to moving so quickly in an airplane. A road trip must feel excruciatingly long sometimes.
Yeah, if I had to drive more than 2 hours, that's too long.
Okay. That would be really interesting. Let's shift a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, okay, no, wait. We have to cover a really important event in your life. You met Kristy, your
Yes.
wife. Where did you guys meet?
We met on our mission.
Okay.
And of course, I think that's pivotal too, obviously, very, very important in my life. So I was driving the missionary transfer van. It was my turn to drive. During that time of my mission, I was an assistant to the mission president. And in my mission, they call it traveling missionaries. So you were the companion of the AP, basically. This was about 11 months into my mission, and it was my turn to drive the transfer van. It was an 18 passenger van to St. George, from Provo to St. George. By the way, on my mission, I had all kinds of firsts because I never really learned to drive in Mexico City. So my mission president made me go to driver's ed in the States, get a license. Anyway, it's a long story, but there I was driving to St. George, and the van was so full, there was no other place for Kristy, or in those days, Sister Hudson, to sit, but in the front seat, as you know, the passenger side. And if you know Kristy, she loves to talk. And I'm generally quiet. I'm more of an introvert. Probably more so in those days. And so I was happy just to have somebody do most of the talking. And I would just ask questions, and she would, kind of like what we're doing right here, right now. I'm doing most of the talking. But on that day, she was doing a lot of the talking. So we got to know each other, I think, pretty good. It's about 3.5 hours of driving and just talking to one another. But of course, you're a missionary. We became acquaintances at that time. And then my next assignment in the mission was to become a zone leader. And they sent me to be the zone leader to Dixie in St. George, which was the zone that had all the sister missionaries, like 16 of them, for the visitor center.
Wow.
And Kristy was one of those. A very curious thing that when I was a missionary, Kristy and she was a missionary too, we had PPIs, we had one-on-ones, and in those days, you could be completely alone, really. We had kneeling down prayer, or to talk about missionary stuff. I would have never guessed in a million years that was going to be repeated, down the road, that we were going to be married. So, we developed a friendship, a professional friendship, if you will. We knew each other. Then later, fast forward, we actually finished our mission on the same day.
Oh, wow.
On the same transfer, just because timing, that's all, right? And because she's from Texas and I was going back to Mexico, I was switching airplanes in Dallas Fort Worth, and that's where Kristy was coming to. So we were dropped off together at the Salt Lake City airport on the same day. We were going to be on the same flight. And Kristy had just a little too many bags, things that she had accumulated in the mission field, just like many missionaries.
So you had a forewarning that she liked things. Okay. Probably half of them were craft things, right?
Yeah, as I look back now, I realize I did. So I had to help her. Together we went through her stuff and decided what was important and what's not. And she bought an extra bag, and then we had to leave some things behind. And this is before 9/11, so we literally ran to the airplane door, and they were closing the door, and we made it on the plane. And then we were not seated on the same row or anything, but I was helping carry some stuff. And so when we got off the airplane, I had a plane to catch. And this being before 9/11, as soon as she came out of the airplane, her family was there at the end of the jet bridge.
Oh, wow.
So she ran to them, and they had a big reunion. And I was, in the meantime, holding this bag or dresses, and I was like, I got to give this to somebody. I got to go. I'm going to miss my plane. I want to see my family. And I remember finding her dad, Ken Hudson, which a lot of people know. And I said, this is your daughter's. See ya. There was no, hey, can I have your number or your email address? Or, hey, call me. There was nothing like that. We're just,
You're ready to go
acquaintances.
home. Bye.
We were
Yeah.
acquaintances. There was no like, hey, maybe I can write her. We were
That wasn't in your
strictly
mind.
professional. No, not
Yeah.
at all. Not at all. Not on hers, not in mine. Later, I would learn. I learned that she thought she respected me a lot as a missionary. But I took my plane home and I got to Mexico City, and everything happened about 9 months later. I was back in the States. I was working, and our mission, just like most missions, every transfer, the outgoing missionaries share their testimony, right? And because it's Provo and a lot of the students are there because of BYU, our mission president had a get together with return missionaries from the mission to say goodbye to the outbound missionaries, to be there for their testimonies and so forth. As I look back, I realized that he was also kind of playing matchmaking. And why not, right? You're in Provo, there's a lot of return missionaries, there's a lot of you. So it's a great place to meet other people. And so she was there, I was there. We talked for a little bit, but this time we exchanged phone numbers. And then about 6 weeks later, she happened to call me to talk. But I was getting ready to go to a BYU dance because I wanted to meet people. I wanted to dance. And I knew she liked to talk. So I said, okay, if I sit down and talk to her on the phone, I'll never make it to the dance. But I really
Good
want to
call.
go to the dance, but I don't want to just turn her down completely. So I said, Kristy, are you busy right now? What are you doing? She said, I'm doing nothing. And I said, I'm on my way to the BYU salsa dance. Would you like to come? She said, yes. So I picked her up in American Fork, and then we drove back towards Provo. We went to the dance, and then that dance led to another dance, and then another dance. Then, the Manti pageant, and before you know it, you were dating the entire summer long, right? And then we just kind of went from there. And then I realized that I really liked her, and I noticed early on that she had a tremendous ability to make friends or to talk to people without any inhibition. Even if they were strangers, she could talk to anybody, and that was one of the qualities that I was attracted to. Probably in part because I'm not good at that. I'm generally quiet, and I'm content with just looking at somebody else's eyes and just nod my head. But yeah, that's kind of how Kristy and I started, if you will. And of course, a year later from that first dance, we got married in the Mountain Ponogos Temple, and then about a year and a half later, almost two, we moved to Plano because of my first job. We lived with my in-laws in her house. We figured we lived there until we decided where in the Metroplex to live, maybe close to the airport. But then we stayed there 4 years. We had our first two children there, Risa and Emin, and then I realized, we really need to find our own place. There's four of us now, and thankfully we found a home in the Plano Third Ward, and we stayed. And so it's been great. 20 years in December.
Wow, 20 years.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Does that count the 4 years living with the Hudsons?
Yeah.
Or this is, okay.
20 years
Wow.
that we moved to Plano.
What a busy 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
You've been called to a lot of leadership positions, which understanding how quiet sometimes you like to be, just personally. Has that ever been kind of hard? You've seen many great leaders come through your life, so you've had good examples.
Yeah.
But personally, has that been a little bit hard to be in the spotlight?
Yes, at times. I think I definitely prefer to be in the background. I have learned to adapt, and I think one of the blessings of having married Kristy, and as I look back, maybe that's the way the Lord was orchestrating it, it being married to Kristy has helped me probably a lot in my ability to be able to talk to other people or to not be in my shell, if you will, and to socialize. I think if I had married somebody like me, I would be very, very quiet and just reserved. But I think I learned a lot from Kristy from that perspective, and has helped me develop, I think, as a person, and my ability to connect and to relate with others and to engage in conversations. It's still not my favorite thing to do, but I'm happy to do it, especially when it's something that the Lord wants me to do. Um, when I know I can make a difference. Yeah.
That's really neat. Well, I notice you tend to notice the people who are also not in the spotlight, that may be a little bit more reserved, that need that extra, hey, just being noticed sometimes helps. And I've noticed that you do kind of gravitate towards those people, and I think that makes a difference.
I like being noted, by the way. I think it's nice to know that you're not invisible. And I think most people can relate to that. And some people, are very good at talking and very confident and self-assured. So I think they need maybe less of that. Others, like me, we're more quiet, and it feels good to know that you're noticed. And you mentioned leadership positions. I think sometimes when you're leadership, you're noted one way or the other because you are there, right? There is no escaping.
But sometimes it's not you that's noticed, it's you as that position or you as that calling, but you can kind of feel hidden as a person behind that calling. Sometimes, maybe not.
Thankfully, there is layers of leadership, and sometimes it's the people that you report to who provide that assurance that you're not invisible. And sometimes it's the people that you serve that let you know that they see you as well. And it's a beautiful thing. I can think of many examples.
That's really
And
neat.
I'm grateful for it.
Are there any favorite people that you've worked with in your time and in different callings? Or somebody you worked with that was really influential to you?
I've taken a lot from many different people. I think, like most people, I try to take from them as much as I can that is good. I would feel bad mentioning anybody in particular.
Okay.
But I can tell you honestly that I have learned a lot. Almost every week, almost in every contact that I have, I try to see what's something good that I can adopt from that person. And I think one thing that comes professionally naturally to me is I try to learn or to recount or analyze what I can learn from every interaction. It's something that as pilots we do. We try to debrief and understand what can I learn from this mission or this flight or this happening, and try to take the good. And so it's something that comes naturally to me. I guess I kind of think in my mind and peel the layers and try to extract what is good from it.
That's neat. You're seeking for the good and the truth.
And another thing that has been influential, I think, I like to read a lot of biographies from general authorities, members of the church, or people that are well-known leaders in the world. And I try to, when I see or read something that I really think is good or I like, I try to think of how can I adopt that in my own life, because those are excellent lessons too.
That's really neat to notice something you like, but also to actually apply it and find a place for it in your life.
Or at least try to apply it. Not always successful, and it's a lifetime of, sometimes you're better, at times to applying things, and sometimes people remind you, hey, you said you wanted to be like that person. like my wife, sometimes she may be like, hey, remember you said you wanted to do that? And I realized, oh yeah, I said that and I can do better. It's good to have those reminders, right?
Especially with a good teammate like Kristy.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Okay, fun question. Where is your most favorite place on earth that you've been?
Fun? Is that you said? Is that what
Oh
you said?
yeah,
Or
it's
like
just a fun question. What's
Yeah.
one of your favorite places that you've been that you like to go back to, or?
I enjoy going to Alaska, again with my work, and I think it's purely for the joy of looking at my surroundings. I like flying to coastal places just to see in the ocean. I like to go into places where there is mountains. California, the coast of California, whether it's south or north, in Alaska or Canada is particularly a beautiful place for me to see because they combine the ocean and the mountains and sometimes the snow. And so it's very visually appealing. I think I really enjoy doing that. Um, and then second to that, I like flying to the southwest, like Las Vegas, Utah, um, you know, Eastern California, because the desert I think looks really beautiful, especially when the sunlight hits it at different angles. The colors are just so bright and alive. Um, like the red rocks in Utah when they have snow, that contrast is really beautiful. I enjoy going to Hawaii a lot.
You've flown to Hawaii.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, many times. It's really pretty. Um, and there is a certain beauty to fly over large metropolitan areas like New York City, Philadelphia. Sometimes when you're on the ground, they're not as pretty anymore. There's a lot of people, obviously, and a lot of noise. But from the air, um, there's a certain beauty to them, especially when a lot of the history that took place there, and you think of, you know, yeah. By the way, I'm fascinated by history, and so when I fly over certain places, I think of their history. Like for example, I've really always enjoyed going to New York City and fly up the Hudson River because you pass over the Statue of Liberty and all the history there, right? And so I really enjoy that. Yeah.
That's neat. Thank you for sharing that.
Food too. I can go on.
Oh,
Like
food.
New Orleans. Going to New Orleans, they have very delicious food, and it's an interesting place. Their music too. Anyway, almost every place has its unique appeal, I would say.
That you tend toward the nature, the beauty God made.
Yeah.
That's really special. Okay, this is a hard question. What is something that you have achieved that you're particularly proud of?
Hmm. I mean, I think my achievements have mostly been, average, normal, like a college degree, a good job, although again, I'm very aware and mindful that it's not my achievement alone, but it was a blessing from Heavenly Father, and certainly I like to say I have played my cards right, but I'm the first one to admit Heavenly Father has given me those cards to play with. I really haven't done anything amazing other than just normal stuff.
Sometimes it's those little things, that were really hard to buckle in and do, or something
But
like that.
here's one that I
ring a
can
bell?
mention, and that I am generally proud of, I would say. It's not any big achievement, but I'm proud of this. So when I was 17, I think, 16 or 17, by the way, I can play the piano a little bit. And that was because there was this one young girl in high school that I was assigned to learn to play this song that I knew she liked. That was my motivation to learn the piano. And I did learn to some extent. I don't have much technique. But the point being, I learned enough that my piano teacher, she said, okay, you're going to be in a recital, at the end of the year recital. And you're going to play this one song. I think I was supposed to play America, it was titled. And so I pretended that I was practicing and learning the song. All the while, I was mastering Unchained Melody from the Righteous Brothers to play for this girl. And in my mind, I figured I'm going to conquer my fears, and in the recital, I'm going to do something amazing. I'm not going to play America. I'm going to play Unchained Melody. And I told this young lady that I really liked, that I thought I was in love with, of course, when you're in high school, right? You're like 15, 16. And I said, and you better be there.
So you invited her also.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, kind of like half of the school knew about this. She was a very popular girl. I wasn't. It was more like puppy love type thing. And
Yeah, but that's quite brave.
she enjoyed the
very
attention.
special.
Let me say this, because I gave her a lot of attention, but she was not interested in me, at least not at the time. And I mean, we were friends. We were in the same stake and everything, in the same. We knew each other, at church from activities. And so when the recital came, they announced, and now here comes Helaman Aragon, and he'll play America by, I don't know who.
Oh no, that was the wrong song.
I mean, they announced it, right? I mean,
Oh, okay.
it was in the program. And of course, when the time came, I started playing Unchained Melody. and the entire theater, erupted, with cheers. And it was one of those like moments, like in like coming of age, teenage movies where like somebody, does something amazing or fun like that, and everybody is like excited and happy and cheering you on, right? I
I
think
can picture that.
I think that was one of like the craziest things I've done in my life, or like the most brave things. I'm pretty proud of that. I think, I don't know where that came from, but to me, I know I did it, and I felt really good about myself that I was able to do that. And anyway, obviously I didn't marry that person. That was not the direction that Heavenly Father wanted for me. But at the time, it was quite a thing, and she was very impressed. Let me say this. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's those people that can motivate us just in the right way. That's
Yeah.
so neat. That's such a fun victory. I can picture that. Everybody
Yeah.
cheering.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question. You talked about Kristy, and she's one of your most, I guess, best cheerleaders. You guys are a good team. Your kids are wonderfully patient, all of them, and they support both of you in a lot of callings and things.
Yeah.
And I know you and Kristy also invest a lot of time in them. What's one of your favorite things about each of your kids? I know there's so many things, so what's just one?
Okay. Let's see, a favorite thing from each one of my kids.
You don't have to go in order. Whatever pops into your mind.
I want to think carefully about this. And so Risa, I think Risa and I have, she might not like to admit this, I think, but she and I have a lot of things in common. We both love nature, the outdoors. We feel at home if we are maybe in the mountains camping, or enjoying nature. And she can be quiet like me, so we can be experiencing something, like outdoors, and there is not a whole lot need to talk, but we know we're both absorbing that and experiencing that. Um, and I know that she's experiencing the same thing I'm experiencing. We're kind of like, I guess, being one in that respect. Um, Let me see. With Ammon, I wish I thought about this ahead of time.
I know it's a
so I
tough
can say the
question.
right things if they listen to this. So Ammon is a very meek child. I think from the time he was a baby, he's always been a very easy to entreat, easy to deal with child. One that readily obeys and listens and internalizes lessons that we as parents have to give and share. And I can see in him when we talk that he's absorbing those lessons, that he's thinking. And I have enjoyed that about him. He's definitely a good boy. With Isaac, and I told him this at times, I know that he's very kind-hearted, very tender feelings. He's very sensitive, and I've seen him thinking of others before, and I have seen what he has said or done that is in thinking of others, and I have felt touched by his by the way he is, by his inner feelings, and I know that's a gift to have that. Not everybody has that, and so he's a very, very sensitive, I think, to the spirit, so to speak, I think. And then with Danny, I don't necessarily know if it's my favorite thing, but I have observed that she's the youngest of four. She's by far, more than any of the other three, very bold and very extremely smart, in the sense that she probably has observed from the other children what works and what doesn't, and how to talk to parents. And because of the entertainment they watch and the things they do with their friends, at this age of 6, she has captured a lot of that. And so she's only 6, but you think she's like 12 sometimes or more, the way she speaks and the way she thinks and communicates, and how he perceives things in her mind and how she connects the dots. It's a little bit scary at times.
She is very
It's like,
smart.
like, why is she gonna be like when she's 12 and then 18? It's like, but I like it a lot that she is, her personality, and she's my second girl, of course. Her personality is different than Risa, in that she is the typical girl who sees her dad as kind of like her hero, at least now, right? I know that changes when they grow, and that's an experience that I didn't necessarily have with Risa because of her personality. Risa is very independent, completely independent, and if she can do something on her own, she will, and she won't ask anybody for help, which is, it could be a great quality to have. And so I don't recall having that more typical, daddy-daughter, relationship that I have with Danny, with Risa. And so I guess that'll be what's something that is my favorite thing about Danny, I guess. Anyway, but I hope I was able to answer that.
I know it's a tough question. There's so many good things about all of them.
Yeah. And, if they listen to this, I don't want to embarrass them or anything.
Yeah, no.
But I love them all. They're each very special. Each definitely has their qualities and personalities. They always tell you this when you're having babies, right? They're all different, but you don't really fully understand what that means until they start hitting their teenage years and their personalities begin to come out for the first time, and they know they have their agency, and they begin to exercise that little by little, and you got to remember they are their own person, and you got to learn to respect that. They're no longer little children that when you say jump, they jump, or when you say, do this or do that, they're their own person. And then I begin more to realize my role as a parent is just to kind of be a light or an instructor, if you will, just to kind of show them the way and keep them safe. And they are really my brothers and sisters. I just happen to be about 20 years or 25 years ahead of them on this same road they're walking. So my job is to be, in a way, a lamp to their feet, show them where where they might trip if they're not careful, light the way for them, help them make the best decisions they can, explain to them the world so they can take advantage of the good things and avoid the bad. And that's how I see my role as their parent, and I'm just very blessed to be a parent to them. One thing I wish I could change about myself is I wish I could be more patient with them. Of course, I say all these things in the quiet and the calm of sitting down here in an interview. I wish I could remember all those things during the busy moments of life when you get frustrated or exasperated and you start raising your voice and you're like, hurry and come on and do this and stop doing that. But deep inside, in the quiet moments of reflection, I know deeply within myself that they are in every way a child of God with infinite potential, and just as much as myself or the next person. And I wish I could always remember that, because then I would treat them differently every waking minute. And unfortunately, I'm not always successful. I wish I could be better at that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It's good to know you're working on some things too.
I'm definitely working on a lot of things. I'm working on everything. Let me put it that way. Absolutely. If there is one takeaway that people could take away, is we are all just like the other person next to each other. We have so much more to learn, so much more to grow. We're just beginning to understand some things. Some things will come later. The experiences that we have shape us, and then there is the gospel, and that also tends to shape us. And everybody has challenges, and we learn a lot from those. No one in this life escapes challenges. That's my biggest takeaway. One of my biggest takeaways is from being the bishop. No one is exempt. Everyone is experiencing a hardship or a heartache of some sort, as well as joys, of course. But we are in this together, and no one is better than anyone else. We're just different, and we're brothers and sisters, truly.
That's neat.
Yeah.
I see that come across in your leadership too. That's really neat. Well, we're almost at the end of Mutual. We're probably a little bit at the end. The last question is, who would you nominate to be interviewed for the podcast? Somebody from Round Rock Ward.
Okay, so the first person that came to mind for some reason was Phil Southern.
Okay, all right.
So get him.
We'll go get him.
Get him. He's a good guy.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. We really appreciate hearing your experiences, and I'm excited to share it with the ward.
Yeah. Think if anybody's listening, if anybody bothers to listen to the end of this, if you're listening, know that each one of you has been instrumental in in my life in some way or shape. And thank you for your friendship, and thank you for your patience. And thank you, Amanda, for this opportunity. I've never done anything like this, but it's been fun being asked questions and answer them and share a little bit more about myself. We don't do that very often, and my kids are not at the age yet when they begin to really think, hey, Dad, tell me more about you when you were my age. That happens much, much later. Right now, it's like, Dad, do we need to do that? Or like, you're a parent too of young children, so I look forward to those years when they will want to ask these questions and perhaps take something from it that might help them in their life.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. We're richer for your experience. So,
Likewise.
until next time, this is the next episode of the podcast in Round Rock Ward.